Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Abreu, and I'm the President and Chief Visionary Officer of Spirit Health Networks. Welcome, and again, if this is your first webinar with us, thank you for spending any of your busy time with your phone and a computer and my voice and others that join me. We want you to know that although we are an organization that essentially sells services and partnerships and collaboration to hospitals to build unexpected revenue sources by focusing on women and women's health, we really make sure that each of our webinars leaves you with a tool or set of tools to take and replicate for internal value in your professional life and in your organization's success. So I just want you to know that. And if this is not your first Spirit webinar, thank you for coming back. And I hope that I will see you all at some event coming up. We have our wonderful Pelvic Floor Health Programming event coming up in March in Denver, and we have our Heart Caring, our cardiovascular, gender-sensitive annual conference coming up in May. And then, of course, we have our Piece de la Resistance, which is our Women's Health Concept Conference in July at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. So I'm hoping I get to put ears to faces at some point. Today I've invited a remarkable woman who was a senior executive, healthcare executive in Omaha at a major healthcare system, and I stole her away because her calmness and her vision is really comparable to none. She's Paula Commerce. She's our National Executive Director of our hospital networks, all the hospitals that work together to demonstrate year after year after year that focusing on women and using Spirit tools and strategies produce really, really significant revenues and results. So welcome, Paula.
Thank you.
And we're going to kind of tag team this. And we're going to start, as I usually do, because definitions are fun. And the first one is magic, and I never really knew what the definition was. It's the art of producing illusions as entertainment. Now, I used to think of that as lying, but hey, you know, magic is really about getting people to believe things that can't be true, but be entertained by it. It's fascinating as if you're a healthcare marketer on the phone to think about that. But I want to define healthcare marketing as the art, and it truly is, of producing hospital business through consumer experience, through the conversion of consumer experience. It's like making a rabbit come out of a hat. How do you take expectation and turn it into reality? And that's what's so hard about our job, to take tears, inspiration, motivation, spirit, and get people to choose our hospital, choose our surgery center, choose it. Zig Ziglar, one of the great marketing geniuses of our century, died recently, so his quotes are everywhere, but I used to always quote this one. People don't buy for logical reasons. They buy for emotional reasons. And I want to invite you to think about that, especially in healthcare. Our patients choose our hospitals and our doctors as if their lives depended on it, and it does. And the stories they tell about life and death and birth and illness take place in the covers, the book covers of your building, and it's kind of neat to think about it that way. You know, I love this. Marketing transforms reality. It does, right? The illusion becomes reality. But you want it to be in your favor, right? And it's a little hard. We're not selling ponchos to a crowd when it's raining at the ball game. There's lots and lots of people selling healthcare, and people don't want to admit that they need it. So there's a lot of other stuff with healthcare reform working against us, and let's take a look at some of that reality quickly. Consumers are not having fun, not with their health. Everyone's getting fatter. Cholesterol and high blood pressure is rising, even though we have such a proliferation of fitness centers, fitness programs, online resources, whatever. We're not having fun with any of that, and so we're not paying attention to what we need to do. And we're not going to hospitals and doctors and saying, boy, this is going to be a good experience. I can't wait to do it. Consumers don't trust advertising anymore in any industry, but especially in healthcare, and they simply don't have time. And see, these are our realities. Here's another reality that I think I'm just going to point out to you all on the phone. Most hospital executives, staff, and healthcare providers, we're not having fun either in our careers right now. healthcare reform, market threats, the confusion, the constant drive for change, which is just against human nature. It's just taxing our emotional health as leaders. And if you go to 10 o'clock and you haven't smiled yet, it's because you're budgeting, because you're hearing about the new Medicare reimbursements. It's just craziness. So the consumers are not having fun when they hear your hospital's name, and neither are you. So what's going on here, and what can we do? The other thing is that all the hospitals around you are really loud. They're even louder than before because everyone's fueled by accountable care moves, by doctors going to go be purchased by your competitor, integration, physician employment, and then this whole population management. And you've got to get the bulk of your community into your database so that you can keep them healthy and get them to stop smoking and get them to lose 30 pounds. This is craziness. And every hospital and healthcare system is pretending they know exactly how to do this, and they're out there chomping at the bit in their community and buying ads and billboards and making new TVs. My goodness, everybody's talking at once. How can you be heard? The reality, though, guys, and this is why I appreciate you being on the phone, because if you're taking the time to be on the phone, there's something about this whole thing called spirit that pulls at you. You do have the magic you need to transform the current market, with or without enrolling in Spirit of Women. And I say that with all due respect to knowing that my salary is paid if you come into Spirit, but knowing you right now, through your drive for innovation, know how to do this. You might just need a little fine-tuning, maybe a little wine, and a whole lot of magic formula to focus and follow. You know, when I've been in healthcare 25 years, and I've been at some of the best. I've been at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center for most of my education, early education, in the C-suite and working with the corporate CEO. One thing they all taught me is you've got to have a formula. It's like algebra. I hated algebra, but you've got to have one. You've got to say this is what you have to do, and you've got to measure yourself against this formula. Spirit is a formula, and sometimes people have a hard time formalizing something called spirit. So today I'm going to formalize magic for us, M-A-G-I-C. I'm going to formalize it, and after we're done, you can download this presentation, you can call me, you can email me directly with questions. All of that information is available. I would love, and believe me, I won't even mention Spirit of Women, but I'd love to get your leadership on the phone and walk through magic. Let's talk about the very first one, M, make a promise. Critical to research, and I should just give a little bit of credibility for myself. I talk to about 350 C-suites a year. I read a lot of books, and I speak at probably 30 conferences, both for consumers and for healthcare leaders a year. And I learn and all those things. I don't have messages. I change to my staff's great consternation. I'm constantly learning and changing the concept. And here is the result of those concepts. The first is, remember, a promise is not your mission. There are exactly 15 missions repeated over and over again at every U.S. hospital, and they're all great, serving the community, having the best care providers, delivering it with with a religious I mean, all these missions are out there, but it's not a promise. And so it's really critical for you to remember that a promise gives something specific for a consumer to remember. You can promise to screen for cancer in every member of their family when they need it and to try to catch cancer as early as possible. That's a promise you can operationalize. Far better than saying we're your community go-to resource for oncology. Remember that you can measure a promise by the number of people who pledge to your promise, or how many times you demonstrate your own promise in what you do for the community. A promise brings something specific and needed to someone's life. No one really needs to know that you're dedicated to the excellence in oncology. Nobody in your community needs to choose your hospital because of that unless they have cancer. And even then, how are you going to break it down to them? How are you going to make a promise to them? I always tell this story. It's going to take me 2 seconds. I think I've told it on another webinar. I know a VP of a major hospital in California who needed very, very sensitive cervical surgery on her neck. She went to the chief of neurology, the neurosurgeon at her facility. He said, wow, this is a crazy, dangerous surgery, but I have all the skill. I've got the robotics I need. We've got a great nursing staff. We're going to take excellent care of you. See you in 2 weeks. She left feeling nervous, but, it was a scary surgery. A friend of hers said, go to this hospital. It happened to be their competitor. She went to a neurosurgeon she went to the neurosurgeon affiliated with another hospital and did all the same tests and told her how dangerous it was. It took 2 minutes to touch her forearm and to say these words: I promise you to do my best to have you leave the hospital feeling less pain and maybe no pain. But I promise you, can't guarantee it, but I promise you my best work. As much difficult as that the decision posed for her, she went with the competing hospital, all because of a promise. Don't forget the power of that, of looking someone in the eyes and saying, I promise. But that comes to the next one. A promise should be made carefully, and you need to keep it faithfully in life and in your hospital. If you break a promise, you got to admit to it, and then you got to prove that you're promise worthy in the future. And those of you that are in PR and media know how hard this is once you break a promise. A promise is at the core, and this is what your CFO will listen to. It's the core of most successful business enterprises in America. Forbes magazine talks about it all the time, but you know it inherently. Southwest has this promise that no matter who you are, no matter if you're the grouchiest person on the planet, Southwest is going to be the most fun you've ever had flying, and they deliver. Nike made the promise they're going to just get you to do it. You're going to buy their products. You're going to be inspired. They put 5 words in their ads. It's all about action, not words. Target, same way. You walk in, it's all about family value, given to the community, given to the family. Look at that board. Look how much we give. Even the way the store is arranged in a family-friendly way. Apple, you all know this, their promise was to obliterate the world of technology through innovation, and that they would do nothing unless it was innovative, and they've kept that promise. So there's all kinds. Starbucks has a promise. It's just not their mission. It's that way they deliver. I have 2 promises up here, and these are national names, and I will tell you that both of these logos are probably doing better than your hospital. And I say this with all due respect for hospitals. It's not because these 2 groups that are up here have better doctors than you. It's not that these 2 groups that are up here do anything different or have more money. But they have, since their very inception, built on a promise. The first, Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Many people believe they're just for-profit mongering off of people who are on their last legs in cancer treatment. But indeed, I toured their facility, met their founder. They were based on a promise, very simple. You and your healing are at the center of our hearts, minds, and actions every day. And we are going to give you a journal, and you are going to tell us what we do that doesn't focus on you, and we will fix it. What a powerful statement. If you've ever been faced with cancer, to know that everything a person does has your best interests and your approval. Powerful stuff. Boston IVF is now opening affiliates all across the country. I learned more about Boston IVF. I was one of our Spirit hospitals that now will be hosting a Boston IVF site because their IVF site needed a jolt. And what's their jolt? Very similar in many ways to cancer. We promise you will be comfortable and confident throughout your entire treatment experience. And if you ask any woman what's important to her, comfort and confidence is right up there. And they keep their promise. Everything they do, every plan they make is about confidence and comfort. Now, I've asked Paula to come in and chime in for a few minutes about promise and how it works with women's health in our hospital. So take as long as you need here for the promise of what you've seen.
Thank you, Tanya. This is a story about one of our hospitals based in Pennsylvania, even though the name indicates that it's in Indiana. And I love the genesis of this promise, which was there was a community survey done, and it identified that the mammogram rate in the counties that were served by this hospital, it was lower than it should be. It was much lower than the national average. And so this hospital decided to make a promise to the people in their community that they were going to do everything they could to raise the rates and the participation in mammograms and the target audiences. And they said the first thing they needed to do was to increase awareness. So they brought in kind of all the usual things, but they kicked off a campaign in October, and it was the Pink Pledge. And what they did with this was it was mostly an online program, and they told people that if they would take the pledge to promise to get their mammogram and annual clinical breast exams from a doctor, and if they would encourage other women to have their screenings, they'd be able to track the increase in utilization and mammogram support in the community. And so they launched this in October, and they backed it up with digital support so that people could actually go online. They could get electronic reminders to get their annual mammograms, do their monthly BSEs. They even had a navigator. We kind of have finally referred to her as the Promise Keeper on staff here at Indiana Regional, who actually helped women to remind them, don't forget, you come in, let's keep this promise for you and your family. They have seen increased numbers of people coming through, but more importantly, they feel like they've really made an impact and provided a service to the community by looking at this responsibility as a promise and bringing other people in on the promise. And this really is, it's not necessarily a Spirit program. It was inspired by much of what we do in Spirit of Women, which is to encourage people to take innovative and heartfelt approaches to the healthcare promotions and education they're doing in their communities. So this is one of our favorite, most recent activities.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing more and more hospitals trying to differentiate from their competitors by saying we promise something. And it shouldn't be lip service, of course, but it can be powerful. And it can get your staff so motivated. What are they promising themselves? And, you know, that's great. And so let's go to the accountability of that promise, because you know what? We can run around all day. Promises are only as good as promises get. And that is, you got to be accountable for the performance of your promise. Really important in the world of marketing, and you know, you use words like magic. Is it real, or are you lying when I have this marketing program, right? I mean, that's what we hear of as marketers. Is it soft? Is it real? Is it illusionary? The truth is, if we plan for accountability, from the very beginning, it can be measured. If we plan that to quantify accountability and keep that to the plan and make it a part of the creative plan and a part of the promise, we promise as a hospital to take 5,000 women through cancer screenings this year, you know, and make those kinds of quantifiable things happen. Be accountable to the downstream that happens from your promise. Be accountable to tell the human story beyond the numbers. And it's funny, here at Spirit, you know, we have about 150 hospitals in about 100-plus cities, and they're getting real excited by something Paula's going to talk about, which is called our business analytics. We've got this whole program that helps our marketing partners as well as our business development leaders at hospitals measure what they're doing. And I go to the hospital, and people come jump at me with the numbers, and I said, well, what happened to the Spirit? Where's the story? Sometimes we forget that story. So that always has to be there. And then secondarily is make sure you promote the results. Just don't sit on your laurels and say, oh my gosh, look, that made the hospital X millions of dollars. Promote the results to everyone that participated. And then here's the key. This is what I always forgot to do, and I'm sure many of us are too busy and forget. Wait for them to tell the story back to you before you move on to the next. That's really pivotal, because then it becomes a part of their story. It becomes their promise to you to recognize your work in marketing, to reward your work and reward the promise that you kept. How do we do it? With hospitals. So I've asked my guru of business analytics in many regards, Paula.
Thank you. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is a hospital. It's a fairly recent Spirit member. It comes from St. Francis in Topeka, Kansas. They joined us a little bit more than a year ago, and they joined Spirit of Women because they wanted to try to firm up their brand. They had a pretty tough competitive situation, and they really wanted to bring together some disparate service lines. They wanted to make sure that everybody could be united under a couple of key messages, and those were all brought forward by Spirit. So their coordinator is a very dynamic, tireless woman who I spent, I think, 20 straight hours with on her launch, and that was the third day of her launch. She is a tireless advocate of women's health, and what this young lady did was put together a business plan that targeted things that were very important to the hospital, that gave responsibilities, actions to others in the hospital, and she has very diligently executed that plan, which I think is part of accountability.
Yeah.
Then she also decided that from the very beginning she would start doing the tracking. And this business analytics model we put together was in response to the hospitals who have said, we love the program, we know it works, we need more than anecdotal information. Help us quantify this. And so we have come up with what we think is a very straightforward and believable analytic tool. Our analyst, or excuse me, our coordinator there in Topeka put this into play, and she actually reported results after 6 months of Spirit programming that exceeded what our average hospitals report after 1 month, or excuse me, 1 year, not 1 month, but 1 year. And her leadership team is very excited about what's going on, and what we find most gratifying about this example, as well as what our other hospitals are doing, is they're able to deliver programming that is intriguing, exhilarating, believable, motivational, but they can also report back that they are making an impact on utilization and on the bottom line. So,
and what's on the screen is how Paula and her team do it. They have and this is why this is adaptable for you. It's a simplified process to track patient revenue by a database of consumers, and I'm sure many of you do this. You compare names assembled in this database with the current patient listing derived from your accounting system. So it's a crossover between medical records, and then you allow for analysis of a particular time frame or a specific event that you include kind of in the rubric of the magic that you're measuring. And then our business analytics anyhow provides a solution for measuring the impact and then the report. We realize that a lot of hospitals don't have time to even write their own reports, so we've been doing those too. So thanks, Paula, because that's really pivotal. You can have all the magic in the world, but if it doesn't benefit directly the hospital's bottom line and the community's health outcomes, it really is worthless. And this is important, and it doesn't have any numbers attached to it. It's something that in all success there is this kind of magic sweet spot, and I believe it's the growth that comes with G. You're going to grow your business if you use something out of the box. But most importantly, if you really look at your C-suite and those that are really incredible leaders, or at moments in time that your career has been in the C-suite or elsewhere and you've been incredibly successful, it's because you've grown personally as you grow the business at the hospital and the outcomes in your community. Help your colleagues find growth and inspiration through whatever magic you decide to have as your formula. Make sure you include personal enrichment for yourself and the team. Without that, it becomes like pumping gas, lots of fumes, and just getting it out there because that's what you do. You want a great degree of, my goodness, I am enriched by working at this hospital because we're marketing a certain way, using a certain, I call it spirit in the business we do, but you can call it anything you want, but make sure it's there. I is my favorite, and that is, it's the worst thing in the world to feel lonely. It causes immune problems. It exacerbates illness in the elderly. It decreases our longevity, and it also makes us less of a buyer. And if you're isolated, you don't go to the doctors. You don't get the diagnostic care you need. So from a healthcare marketing perspective, you've got to un-isolate people. Isolation is really important. And Paula, I know when I met you in Omaha, you were the queen of communities. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, and it comes, there's so many ways that we see people coming together through their Spirit of Women programming. We find it really important for people who are trying to make these initiatives really sail and make an impact to reach out in as many directions as you can. Many of our hospitals rely on advisory boards, internal folks, people out in the community, to help catch the spirit and help spread the word, help to get events launched and help to get more people excited and involved. You can see here from the list we have all kinds of different activities we offer. There's walks, runs, rides, restaurant calls, event planning groups.
And that's what they do. I mean, you don't need to use us. You can do all those things yourself, but put them under the rubric of community building.
Exactly. And honestly, one of our favorite things to talk about is our Day of Dance. And if you've got that, we have pictures of those next.
You know, I don't. Did I put pictures of Day of Dance? I did.
There they are. I thought you did.
I usually don't like to be self-promotional.
I know she doesn't. And one of the things that we love to talk about is one of the events that we stand behind every year, and we're coming up on our 10th anniversary, is what we call a Day of Dance. And it is simply a celebration across the country, bringing people together for the precise reason of exercising, having fun, dancing. It's all in a community setting, and we all have lots of very warm and endearing stories that come out of this event where people are getting together and they actually are dancing together. They're watching family members demonstrate or different groups out in the community. And the idea behind it is to tell folks, if you get out and have fun together with each other and move around, you are so enriched in so many ways. Your health is better because you're moving around, you're enjoying other people's company, and it's just a great health activity all the way around. I've got all kinds of percentages I can share too if you'd like, Tanya.
Well, I would love if you're interested in the power of community building events. We can send you. We have a report that talks about how many patients were converted, because that's what it's about. Taking this group together and unisolating them. So thanks. Let's let that be offline. If you're interested, go ahead and email us after this, and we'll get that report to you. Lastly, as you sit down with your team and talk about how to most successfully build something, so you have a goal right now. Your objective is to build the orthopedics line. Can you come up with a magic formula to do that? If you do, remember the C. Honor the courage in your community, in your patients, in your staff, and in yourself. Time after time again in healthcare marketing, the concept of courage is rewarded by patient conversion and loyalty. Some things to think about. Do courage events that have themes around courage. And it doesn't have to all be life-saving. It could be, the courage to change the traffic light. I don't know. I mean, I'm being facetious, but courage is not just the, cancer courage or the domestic violence courage. It's all those things that take a bit of bravado. So on some days, just getting up in the morning, But people who have lost weight, and women come out in hordes, how do you have the courage? How do you do it? How did you admit this? Or, how did you admit that you were, going bankrupt? How did you get out of that? What did you do? So, but then there's other themes very much. The courage to serve, honor people. Do events that promote courage in just facing any kind of difficulty. The one thing I want to point out is that some of the best that I've ever gone to in my life are events as a stage to really showcase amazing doctors and courageous patients. I went to a dance, and this will always, I might be on my deathbed and see this. A woman came out, they put a spotlight on her. She was young, beautiful. She had AFib, and she was dying basically in a grocery store. Her heart stopped. They told this story. They showed pictures of her kids behind her. The whole room went dark, dark, dark. Another spotlight came out, and her doctor, a man, came out, and it was just amazing. And they had these two dance together. And talk about resilience, strength, rehab, courage. It was one of the best marketing moments in healthcare I've ever seen. It was picked up, of course, by 2 radio stations, 2 TV stations, and it was just a very powerful local piece. Sponsor community organizations and events that honor the indomitable spirit of who your hospital is, reflected in the firefighters, reflected in crossing guards. Get out there and honor people for the service they provide, just like you provide service to the community. Go to your hospital story and look at it today. What does it really reflect? Is there a way that you can make it focus more on courage, survival, fortitude, championship? Can you be the hospital that has thrived against all odds in the community or a part of it? Have you fought for a clinical service line? Do you have doctors that are, serving in the armed services? Just rewrite your hospital story. It needs to be rewritten all the time to reflect what the current generation needs to hear. And lastly, this is fun. I went to a leadership workshop, and this changed my life. Go home and redo your own professional bio. Tell the story of the jobs that you've had, but also think about your own personal story from about 8 years old on. Note where you were fearless, and honor yourself and your ability to survive. Go back to the hospital. Look at people in that light. It also helps because it just forms more respect for what we do as hospitals and as people. This is magic spirit, I call it. It's the spirit that can really get behind a project and make it successful. Sit down and figure out what your N is, making a promise, your A, about accountability, your G, how growth is happening, I, how isolation is avoided, and C, how courage is always honored. I really wait and hope that you can provide us with some questions, perspective. If you want us to help with a little magic evaluation, happy to do that. Like I said, I hope to see some of you guys at upcoming meetings. I will be the one that has the magic wand, of course. And once again, Paula, you've been wonderful. Paula is really available as well to talk to any of you. You do not have to be a member. She loves. We all do. It's what we live for. Both Paula and I have been 25 years plus in healthcare marketing, and we know how hard it is. And we want to make you the star magician in the organization you are shepherding. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your interest in Spirit Health Group, and we do honestly hope to personally hear from you.